Mom, starting tomorrow, these are your new responsibilities in this house. Renata's words echoed in my mind as I stared at the paper she handed me. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a request. It was an order. My own daughter, in my own home, was giving me a work schedule as if I were a newly hired maid. If you don't agree, she added, her voice cold, a tone she had perfected over the past few months, you can pack your things and leave. This house needs someone who actually helps, not someone who just takes up space. My hands trembled as I read the list. 6 a.m., wake up and prepare breakfast. 7, get the kids dressed and take them to school. 8, clean the house. 9, wash and hang the laundry. 10, make lunch. The schedule continued, hour by hour, until 11 p.m., when I was expected to be ironing clothes for the next day. And obviously, Gustavo added from the couch without looking up from his phone, this includes paying all the house expenses. That's what your pension is for. I stood in the middle of my own living room, the same room where I brought Renata home from the hospital 34 years ago, where we celebrated birthdays, where I held her through her first heartbreaks. Now that same child looked at me with a coldness that cut straight through me. You don't have much time to decide, Mom, she said, painting her nails bright pink. Gustavo already spoke with a lawyer. Since we've been living here for over 2 years and maintaining the house, we have rights. So, you can stay here as our employee, or you can leave, and we'll stay anyway. The threat was clear. In my own house, with the deed in my name, my daughter was blackmailing me. Either I became her personal servant, paying all expenses and working non-stop, or I'd be kicked out so they could take everything. Think it over, Renata continued, blowing on her freshly painted nails. At your age, where else are you going to live on a $600 pension? At least here you have a roof and food, and you get to see your grandkids every day. Unless you'd rather live alone in some miserable little room. Gustavo let out a cruel laugh. Let's be realistic. What else are you going to do with your life? At least this way you'll feel useful. Better than watching TV all day like old ladies your age. My grandchildren sat on the floor with their tablets, completely unaware of the conversation that was shattering my world. 8-year-old Ethan looked up for a moment and asked, Grandma, can you make snacks? I'm hungry. It was the cruelest normal moment. To them, I was already the housekeeper, the one who cooks, cleans, and serves. Not the grandmother who loved them. Not the woman who worked 40 years to buy this home. Just the free help who was always available. Look, Mom, Renata said, walking toward me and placing a condescending hand on my shoulder, it's not that we don't love you. We do. That's why we're giving you the opportunity to stay. But things have to change. This house needs order, and someone has to be responsible for keeping everything running. And why does that someone have to be me? I whispered, finally finding my voice in this nightmare. Because you're the one who doesn't work, Gustavo replied without looking up. We work, we study, we have real responsibilities. You just collect a pension and don't do anything productive. It felt like a slap. 40 years working as a secretary in a government office. 40 years getting up at 5 a.m., taking 2 buses to work, saving every penny to buy this house. 40 years raising Renata alone after her father abandoned us when she was 3. Not productive? I repeated, my voice cracking. All these years maintaining this home, paying the bills, buying your food, taking care of your children so you could go out, washing your clothes, cleaning your messes. That's not work, Mom, Renata cut in with that condescending smile I had learned to hate. That's just what anyone living in a house does. The only difference now is that it'll be organized with fixed schedules so everything runs smoother. I looked around my living room. The furniture I bought with so much sacrifice was ruined. The leather sofa I had spent 2 years paying off was stained and torn from the kids jumping on it without anyone correcting them. 2. The wooden coffee table, once my pride, was covered in stains from glasses and hot plates because no one bothered to use a coaster. My family photos had been taken down and replaced with movie posters Gustavo liked. My books, my treasure, had been shoved into a box in the garage to make space for the video games and gadgets they kept buying with my money. Besides, Renata continued, admiring her nails with a satisfied smile, this is going to be good for you. It'll give you purpose. You've seemed depressed and bored lately. Having clear responsibilities will help you feel better about yourself. The manipulation was so obvious it felt physical, like a punch to the chest. She was selling me my own slavery as if it were a gift, as if becoming their unpaid maid was therapy for my emotional well-being. And you'll work weekends too, Gustavo added, finally lifting his eyes from his phone. Saturdays are for deep cleaning and Sundays are for preparing meals for the week. We're not being cruel, honey. We just need this place to run like a real home. Like a real home? I repeated, feeling the shock slowly turn into anger. This isn't a real home. This is the house I bought, the house I maintained, where I welcomed you when you had nowhere to live. Yes, but now we're a family, Renata replied with that twisted logic that left me speechless. And in a family, everyone has a role. Ours is to work and earn money. Yours is to keep the house running. It's fair. Valerie, my 6-year-old granddaughter, walked over and tugged on my skirt. Grandma, can I have cookies? The ones on top of the fridge? I looked into her little eyes and saw the same expectation I once saw in her mother's. Grandma always says yes, always fixes everything, always available. But now, that expectation came with a schedule, an unspoken contract, a threat attached to it. In a moment, sweetheart, I said gently, brushing her hair. No, Renata snapped. Valerie, your grandma will follow her new schedule. If you want something, you ask at the right time. It's 4 p.m., and according to the schedule, this is her snack prep time anyway. I walked to the kitchen on trembling legs, feeling as if each step pulled me deeper into a hole I wouldn't escape. The schedule was still crumpled in my hand, like holding my own emotional death sentence. When I opened the pantry, reality hit me again. 3 broken cookies at the bottom of a box. An expired can of tuna. Half a bag of rice. The fridge wasn't much better, 2 yogurts Renata bought for herself, 1 of Gustavo's beers, and leftovers from a 3-day-old dinner no one wanted to eat. Grandma, there's no cookies. Valerie yelled from the living room, impatience dripping from her voice, learned straight from her mother. I'm coming, sweetheart, I replied, already knowing I would have to improvise with whatever scraps they left me in my own kitchen. Renata's heels clicked across the floor as she approached, loud, controlling, claiming space that used to be mine. It was as if handing me that schedule had made her believe she was the new owner of everything. Mom, while you're in the kitchen, you need to go to the store early tomorrow, she said, sticking a list onto the fridge. We need everything on here, about $150 worth of groceries. Oh, and pick up the kids' vitamins and Gustavo's special shampoo. $150. A quarter of my monthly pension, gone in 1 week to feed a family that had decided my money belonged to them. Renata, my pension won't stretch that far every week, I managed to say, my voice sounding small in my own kitchen. Oh, Mom, stop. Always complaining, she sighed dramatically. You know Gustavo is saving to buy us our own house. We can't be wasting our income on food and basic household stuff. Besides, you eat here every day. It's normal for you to contribute. Her logic was so twisted it made my head spin. Gustavo was saving for his own house while living rent-free in mine, eating my food, using my home, and I was expected to pay for the privilege of being their free maid. And what if I don't have enough left? I asked, though I already knew her answer. Then by the basics first, she said bluntly. 3. The kids need to eat well, Mom. You can't be selfish with money when there are little ones in the house. Selfish? With my own money, in my own home. The word hit me like a knife straight to the heart. Gustavo wandered into the kitchen, stretching like he had just rolled out of bed. It was 4:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, and he was still in pajamas, glued to the TV while I handled everything else. Sweetheart, could you make something nice for dinner? I had a tough day at work, he said, grabbing a beer from the fridge as if it were the most normal thing in the world. A tough day? I asked before I could stop myself. I didn't see you leave this morning. I work from home on Tuesdays, he replied, with a tone that told me I shouldn't question him. Virtual meetings. Important calls. It's stressful. I need to unwind after. I glanced at the clock, 4:30 p.m. If he worked, his day lasted exactly 3 hours, considering he was snoring on the couch at 1 p.m. He took a long sip of beer. Renata and I were talking about a few more rules so the house runs smoother. For example, we need you to respect our downtime. When we're watching TV, it's better if you don't interrupt with cleaning or cooking noise. But the schedule says I'm supposed to cook now, I said, holding the paper that was still crumpled in my hand. Yes, but quietly. Or cook earlier when we're not resting. It's just about better organization. The absurdity was unreal. I had to cook at fixed times, but also not disturb their rest, which seemed to last all day. The rules were strict, until they wanted to change them. Renata returned with that familiar smile, cold, calculated. The smile she used whenever she was about to say something hurtful wrapped in concern. Mom, I also wanted to talk about your room, she said, leaning on the counter like she owned the place. The master bedroom. My bedroom. The room I slept in for 30 years. The room where I cried after my husband died. Where I dreamed of watching my grandkids grow up in a loving home. Now they wanted to stick me in the tiny service room. A storage space, really. That room is very small, Renata, I said, feeling my voice tremble. There's barely room for a twin bed. It's perfect for you, Mom. You don't need much space. And we need the bigger closet for our clothes and the kids' things. It's more practical for everyone. More practical for everyone. That had become their excuse for every humiliation, every piece of dignity they stripped away. Every step turning me into a shadow in my own life. And, Gustavo added, the small room is closer to the kitchen. It'll be easier for you to get up early to make breakfast without waking anyone. Of course. They had calculated where to put me, close to the kitchen so I could serve them better, far from the main living areas so I wouldn't bother the true residents of the house. 4. And when do I have to move? I asked, even though deep down I already knew I didn't have a real choice. This weekend would be perfect, Renata replied cheerfully, as if we were planning a vacation instead of pushing me out of my own room. Gustavo can help you move the heavy things. Well, the few things you need to take. Most of the master bedroom furniture we'll be using ourselves. The furniture I had bought. The solid wood dresser I purchased with my first paycheck. The vanity with the mirror where I got ready on my wedding day. The bed where I conceived Renata. Gustavo, and I think it's best if you move into the small room in the back. We need the master bedroom. It's bigger and we have more stuff. I don't know, Mom. You must have friends. Go for a walk, go to church. There are plenty of things a person your age can do. The important thing is that you have your own activities, so you don't depend so much on us for entertainment. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling that would soon no longer be mine, wondering how things had come to this. When did I stop being the mother and become the servant? When did I lose the right to have a say in my own home? I remembered when Renata and Gustavo arrived 2 years ago, after losing their apartment when he lost his job. They came with tears in their eyes, hugging me, promising it would only be for a few months until they got back on their feet. You're our salvation, Mom, Renata had said that first night. We don't know what we'd do without you. You're the best mother in the world. The first weeks had almost been joyful. The house felt alive again. Children's laughter filled the halls that had been silent since my husband passed. Renata helped with cooking. Gustavo fixed little things around the house. The kids hugged me for no reason at all. My heart felt full. But slowly, so slowly I didn't notice until it was too late, everything changed. First, Renata asked me to watch the kids while she went job hunting. Then, Gustavo expected dinner because he was too tired from interviews. Soon it became natural for me to pay for groceries because, as they said, we all eat here. Every favor became an expectation. Every act of love turned into an obligation. Every "it's okay, I don't mind" was another step into silent servitude. And with what money? I asked softly. Oh, Mom, always worrying about money, she replied with that fake little laugh she'd perfected. Gustavo got a bonus at work. We deserve a break after everything we've been through. A bonus. Gustavo, who worked barely 3 hours a day from home, had received a bonus. Yet somehow, that money was never available for groceries, bills, or contributing to the household. It was only enough for luxury hotels and romantic getaways. And the kids will be okay with me all weekend? I asked, even though I already knew my opinion didn't matter. Of course they will. You're their grandma. It's natural for you to take care of them. Besides, according to your new schedule, weekends are for activities with them, she said, scrolling on her phone like she was reading off a corporate agenda. It was true. On the schedule they had assigned me, weekends were labeled for full-time childcare and deep house cleaning. Rest didn't exist in their version of family life. Renata, we need to talk, I said, feeling something inside me finally snap. This can't continue. She glanced up from her phone with genuine confusion, as if she couldn't understand why I was resisting what she saw as a perfectly fair arrangement. Talk about what, Mom? Your negative attitude lately? Because yes, I've noticed you've been very grumpy. Maybe you should see a doctor. At your age, hormonal changes are normal. Hormonal changes. My exhaustion from being used was now a medical condition. My refusal to be mistreated was a symptom of aging that required treatment. I'm not sick, Renata. I'm tired of being treated like an employee in my own home, I said, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. Employee, she repeated, with an offended expression dramatic enough to win an Oscar. Mom, how could you say that? We're family. And in a family, everyone has responsibilities. Ours are to work and earn money. Yours is to keep the house running. It's simple. And why do my responsibilities include paying all the expenses and working around the clock? I asked, my voice unsteady but firmer. Mom, no one asked you to work 24 hours. The schedule we gave you is very reasonable. You have free time between tasks. You can rest, watch TV, do whatever you want in your free time. I looked at the schedule taped to the refrigerator. The free time she mentioned was made up of scattered 30-minute gaps, just enough to go to the bathroom or drink water, but never enough to truly rest. And the money? Why am I paying for everything when you have income? I pressed. Because we're saving for our future, Mom. We can't waste our money on day-to-day expenses when we have long-term goals. You've already lived your life. You had your chance to save and plan. Now it's our turn. The cruelty was stunning. According to them, my life was already over. My purpose now was to fund theirs. My pension, earned over 40 years of hard work, was less important than their desire for a more comfortable future. Gustavo walked into the kitchen dressed to go out, wearing a satisfied smile that now made my skin crawl. He leaned over and kissed Renata on the cheek, a gesture that felt like he was marking his territory. I wasn't included. I wasn't even seen. All set for the weekend, he asked her, ignoring me even though I stood just a few feet away. Yes, my love. I already explained everything to Mom. She'll take care of the kids and the house, Renata replied, referring to me as if I were a household appliance she had arranged before leaving. Perfect, honey. Then Gustavo turned to me at last. Just one more thing. On Monday, my mother is coming to visit for a few days. She'll need the guest room, so make sure it's spotless. She also likes breakfast early, around 6 a.m. I hope that won't be a problem, Gustavo added casually. His mother. Another person I would have to cook for, clean for, and serve, in my own home. Another mouth fed with my money. Another person who would treat my help as a given, not a kindness. And how long is she staying? I asked, already bracing myself. We're not sure yet. It depends on how she feels. She's been very lonely since my father passed, so we thought being around family would be good for her. Family. As if my home were a free emotional rehab center for anyone who needed comfort. Gustavo, your mother and I don't get along, I said, remembering every cold glance, every insult disguised as advice. Oh, honey, that's all in the past. You need to learn to forgive and forget. Besides, she's an elderly woman. She needs care and attention. I'm sure once you get to know her better, you'll get along just fine. Care and attention that, of course, I would be expected to provide, without a break, without appreciation, while Renata and Gustavo enjoyed their romantic retreat. I could already picture myself serving breakfast at 6 a.m. to a woman who thought she was above me. And Mom, Renata added, fastening the earrings that matched her outfit perfectly, when my mother-in-law gets here, it would be best if you give her the master bedroom. We'll sleep in the kids' room for a few days. She needs to be comfortable. The master bedroom, the room they had already taken from me, was now being offered to Gustavo's mother. I, the actual owner of the house, would be squeezed into the smallest room while a stranger slept in my bed, used my furniture, and expected my service. The weekend that followed was worse than anything I had imagined. Renata and Gustavo left at 2 p.m. on Friday after handing me a detailed instruction sheet for the kids, complete with exact meal times, educational activities, limited screen time, and strict bedtime routines. It's important you maintain discipline, Mom, Renata said before stepping into the taxi I paid for. If you spoil them this weekend, they won't respect us when we come back. Ethan and Valerie looked at me expectantly, waiting for me to be cook, entertainer, teacher, maid, and full-time babysitter. It wasn't their fault. They were children in a system where grandma was the unpaid help while their parents enjoyed freedoms I barely remembered. Saturday morning, while making pancakes exactly as instructed, Ethan spilled orange juice on the living room rug. A normal childhood accident. But when I went to clean it, I realized the cleaning supplies were almost gone. Grandma, Mom says when something gets stained, you have to clean it right away or it's ruined forever, Valerie said with the seriousness of a supervisor. She wasn't wrong. Renata had been clear, the house needed to be spotless. So at 9 a.m., I walked to the store with both children, spending $30 of my pension on cleaning products, for a spill that could have been cleaned with soap and water. At the supermarket, Ethan wanted the special cereal his father ate, $8 a box. Valerie wanted the organic cookies her mother liked to buy, $10 a pack. I stared at the shelves, doing desperate math in my head, aware that every dollar spent on them meant less for my medication, my bills, my needs. Grandma, why are you taking so long? Ethan asked impatiently as I compared laundry detergents. I'm just seeing which one is better, sweetheart, I said gently, because how could I explain to an 8-year-old that his grandmother had to choose between his treats and her prescriptions? When we got home, I found a message from Renata. Mom, I hope you bought fresh vegetables for the week. When we get back Sunday, we want the house perfect and the kitchen stocked. We don't want to come home to an empty fridge after our relaxing trip. Fresh vegetables. Another $50 I didn't have. Another long walk with the kids because the taxi money now had to go toward food. Another day of my weekend spent meeting the comfort needs of 2 adults staying in a luxury hotel, funded by all the bills I covered at home. By Sunday afternoon, while I scrubbed the house top to bottom for their grand arrival, my phone rang. It was Lucy, my neighbor of 15 years, the only person who sensed something was wrong, even though I had never told her everything. Honey, are you okay? You haven't seemed like yourself lately, she said, her warm voice reminding me what it felt like to talk to someone who truly cared. Yes, I'm fine, I lied automatically, folding Gustavo's clothes, the ones I had washed and ironed for him on my free weekend. No, you're not, she said softly. I noticed you leaving very early every morning, almost as if you were rushing somewhere. And I see you coming home with grocery bags nearly every day. "What's going on in your house?" she asked, with that gentle persistence only true friends have. For a moment, I wanted to end the call. It was easier to pretend everything was fine, to pretend it was normal for a 66-year-old woman to live like a housekeeper in her own home. But something in Lucy's voice cracked something inside me. "Lucy, could you come over for a moment?" "I need to talk to someone," I said, surprising myself with my own honesty. "I'm on my way," she replied, without hesitation. When she arrived, the children were in the living room, completely absorbed in their shows. We sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the spotless order I had worked so hard to create for their parents' return. And for the first time in months, I told someone the truth. I showed her the schedule. I explained the money situation. I told her about the threat of being kicked out of my own home if I didn't agree to be their unpaid helper. I told her about the tiny room, the family-only Sundays that excluded me, and about Gustavo's mother, who would soon come to be served by me in my own bed. Lucy listened quietly, her expression shifting from shock to horror, and finally to a level of indignation I hadn't seen in a long time. "Honey, this is abuse," she said at last, with a clarity that hit me like a slap of truth. "This is not normal. This is not what a loving family does." "But, they say everyone in a family must play their role," I murmured, repeating the line I'd heard so many times. "No," she cut in firmly. "In a healthy family, roles are discussed and agreed upon. No one forces an unpaid job on anyone. No one threatens to throw you out of your own home. That's not love. That's exploitation." The word hung in the air between us. Exploitation. It wasn't family dysfunction. It wasn't a generational issue. It wasn't that I couldn't adapt to modern times. It was simple, clear exploitation. But what can I do? I whispered, feeling tears finally fall after months of holding them in. They're right about one thing. With my age and my pension, where can I go? Who would even want me? "Honey, look at me," Lucy said, taking my hands gently. "You are 66, not 96. You own your home, you have a stable pension, and your mind is perfectly sharp. You don't need anyone to support you. They're the ones who need you." Her words were so simple, yet so revolutionary, they left me speechless. For so long, I had convinced myself that I was fortunate just to have a roof over my head, that I forgot the roof was mine. I had believed I was the one benefiting from their generosity, when in reality, they were surviving off mine. "And tell me something," Lucy continued, "do you honestly think this will improve with time? Do you believe that one day they'll wake up and suddenly decide to treat you with respect? Honey, this is only going to get worse. Every boundary you allow them to cross becomes the new minimum standard for how they treat you." She was right. The schedule hadn't appeared overnight. It was the result of 2 years of slowly eroding my dignity, tiny favors that turned into expectations, small sacrifices that became mandatory duties. "What would you do in my place?" I asked, though deep down I already knew the answer, and feared it. "I'd kick them out of my house tomorrow," she replied without a second of doubt. "And if you're not ready for that yet, then start with boundaries. Charge for your work. Demand respect in your own home. Remind them who actually owns this place." Just then, we heard a car door. Renata and Gustavo were back from their romantic getaway, sun-kissed and relaxed, ready to slip right back into the dynamic where I served as their unpaid help and they acted like generous employers. "Honey," Lucy said before leaving, "if you ever need to talk, need help, or need someone to remind you that you deserve dignity, call me, day or night. And think about this, if a housemaid worked the hours you work, and paid for the privilege of working, how long would she last in that job?" And I began to explain. "Oh, please." He interrupted me. "You always have excuses. My mother needs to have a proper breakfast. Go to the supermarket now and buy what's needed, and next time plan better. Go to the supermarket at 7 o'clock in the morning. Spend more money. I didn't have to please a woman who treated me like trash in my own house." All this while, Gustavo prepared to go to his 3-hour-a-day job, and Ranetta continued to sleep peacefully in the children's room. And with what money? I asked, feeling something harden inside me. I already spent everything I had this weekend. With your pension money. Obviously, Gustavo replied as if it were the stupidest question in the world. That's what you have income for. Right? To keep the house running. My pension is already committed for this month, I said with a firmness that surprised me. I don't have any more money available for unplanned expenses. The silence that followed was so dense. It could be cut with a knife. Gustavo looked at me as if I had blasphemed, and Marissa had the expression of someone who had just witnessed the most incomprehensible rebellion in history. Are you telling me you can't buy food? For my mother? Gustavo asked, raising his voice with an indignation that would have been comical if it hadn't been so cruel. I'm telling you, I don't have money available right now, I repeated, keeping my voice as calm as possible. This is incredible, Marissa exclaimed, addressing her son as if I weren't present. This is the kind of service the family receives in this house. An employee who refuses to do basic shopping. Honey, this can't go on, Gustavo said, adopting a tone he would have used to scold a problematic employee. If you can't fulfill the basic responsibilities of maintaining this house, then perhaps we need to reconsider the living arrangements. There was the veiled but clear threat again. Do you comply with our demands? Or do you leave your own house? Do you serve our family without limits? Or do you lose the right to live in the place you yourself bought and paid for? At that moment, Ranetta appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, but fully awake thanks to the noise of the argument. Her presence immediately changed the dynamic of the conversation, as if she were the manager arriving to resolve a labor dispute. What's going on here? She asked, though it was obvious she had been listening from the hallway. Your mother is refusing to go to the supermarket to buy breakfast for my mom. Gustavo explained to her as if he were a child reporting another child's bad behavior. Mom, Ranetta said, with that voice of disappointment she had perfected since adolescence. Is it true that you don't want to buy food for Grandma Marissa? The manipulation was perfect. They had transformed my resistance to spending money I didn't have into a cruel refusal to feed a needy elderly woman. They had turned my attempt to set basic financial boundaries into an inexcusable act of selfishness. It's not that I don't want to, I explained, feeling myself defending against accusations I shouldn't have to refute. It's that I've already spent all my money for this month, and I don't have any budget left for additional purchases. Oh, Mom. Always exaggerating about money. Ranetta sighed dramatically. How much can breakfast cost? $10, $15. Don't tell me you don't have $1 to feed your family. $15, that would become $30 tomorrow, $45 the day after tomorrow. A constant drain on my pension to keep comfortable a woman who openly despised me. Besides, Gustavo added, my mother won't be here forever. It's only temporary while she adjusts to being alone. Can't you make this small sacrifice for the family? Temporary. The same word they had used when they arrived 2 years ago for a stay of a few months. The same empty promise they had used to justify every new invasion of my space, every new demand on my time, every new hole in my budget.